All right, so we're on recording. Go ahead, Wade. Take it over.
So we're here to give a little intro on the data breach investigations report. I'm very glad, like you said, that it's well read, that a lot of people are interested in the report, find it useful. Of course, that's our goal. So always like to hear feedback like that. So from what I understand, that there might be some interest there in sort of how this thing came about and where did it come from? What were the origins of the report back when we started doing it? So just in case you don't know, we're talking about we just released this version, the 2010 Data Breach Investigations Report. We've got a couple other years that we've done this. In case you haven't read them, they're still available and free, of course, no sign up necessary. But the first year we did this was in 2008. And whereas a lot of reports, I think, that are like this, in other words, vendor industry-based reports where they share some kind of data, a lot of them start out in the marketing department. I think something that sets this one off is it really didn't start out there. It's kind of an interesting story, at least to me. Hopefully it is to you as well. But the origin of this was actually because we were looking for good quality, useful data to use internally. And that's actually why we wanted to gather the data and why this thing kicked off. So at the time, this was back in 2007, I was doing a lot of risk modeling and decision support systems and things like that, just in terms of how do you make better decisions for security expenditures and things of that nature. And of course, the same problem that everybody has is you run into this issue of there's not a lot of data available to really drive those decisions. So we end up making our decisions based on peer recommendations and things that other people have good experiences with, or some of them are based on hyping and fear mongering and things like that, I think are unfortunate. But, a lot of security decisions are made on these sort of soft parameters, if you'll allow me that word. And so we really were looking for something to change that. In other words, how do you really have data-driven security decisions? And we were, at that time, using a lot of publicly available data, just like a lot of other people do, mining whatever is available in the public. And which is useful. I mean, there's a lot of good stuff out there, especially if you pay attention to all the other reports that are published and things like Data Loss DB and all of those places that report on incidents. A lot of useful information. But, if you view it as, do we really have really deep information on exactly how data breaches occur? A lot of those reports are based on what's reported in the media. So if a company has a breach and they have to report, they're not going to give all the gory details, most likely. They're going to just say what they have to. We lost X amount of records, and it was this type of data loss, and this is roughly how it occurred. Maybe it was a lost laptop, or it was a system intrusion, but nothing along the lines of really how it happened that we could really know what practices to put in place to prevent it. So all that to say, we were very interested in getting this information for our own use for these services and things we were working with. And I happened to see a presentation from Brian Sarton, who runs our investigative response program. And I was just fascinated by what he was talking about. He was giving some anecdotal trends and evidence about, we see this a lot and we see this a little, and here are some attacks that are very common these days. Didn't have any statistics. In other words, there was no 23% of this happens at this rate and things of that nature. But still, very interesting. You could tell they were familiar with what actually happened and what didn't happen. And it just occurred to me that that probably of all places where you could get real data to drive threat models and decision models and things like that, it's from things that actually occurred. Why not use real failures, real incidents for that rather than even attacks? We have issues of using where to get our data and what type, but that seemed like a really good one. Talked to Brian and my boss, Peter Tippett, and we just had a conversation and said, hey, look, that's just a hugely valuable data source. We think it's worth instrumenting it and taking the time to actually collect it. What do you think? And that's how it started. We made a pitch to management that said, okay, if we take people from the bench to actually go about collecting this data, and if we create the data points, it's going to take some time. Can we do this? And that's how the report actually came about, is sort of a payment to management for investing all the time that it took to collect the data. So we thought it was worth the investment, and that's how it happened.
Oh, do you have any idea exactly how many people are reading this report and are reviewing it? Do you have any kind of metrics on it?
Yeah, we try to track. It's difficult to track it exactly. I think if I remember correctly, last year there were I don't know, a few 100,000 downloads of the report, but I tend to think that people download it and send it via email to people that they know or things like that. So really don't have any idea how many people read it. I'm glad to see it pretty widely quoted, and seems like people are using it. It gets out there and has some influence. I like to hear people when they say things like, yeah, we use this in our boardroom when we're making decisions on what projects to undertake this next year, and the DBIR is sitting right there on the table. So that's perfect use of it as far as we're concerned.
Yeah, that would be perfect use for it so far as InfraGuard is concerned as well. Everybody's looking for aggregated information, right? Where they can go to sort of like a one-stop and shop and find all these various things. Can you tell me, Wade, how long has the report been in existence?
So it's been in existence since 2008. We've done 3 major annual publications on this, and in the past 2 years we've done what we call a supplemental. So there's actually 5 reports out there, and since 2008, 09, and 2010. Now the data set is actually since 2004, since that first report in 2008 covered 4 years of data. Mm-hmm. So it's 3 reports or 3 years, and the span of data that it refers to is 2004 through 2009 so far.
And have you had the Secret Service with you each year during this report, or is this the very first year?
This is the very first year. So we have a pretty interesting relationship with the Secret Service. How that got started is actually just through the normal investigative process. So a lot of time our forensics team is called in to investigate a breach, and just at some point in time, the Secret Service will come in. Maybe we find out that there was, in fact, a crime committed, and the victim wants to pursue some type of prosecution and wants to know who it is. And then the Secret Service will come in as the law enforcement body that sort of takes our evidence and takes it past that point. And so a pretty good working relationship with them. And at some point it was about a year ago, we started thinking, well, we really ought to think about doing a joint data breach report. I think that would be something interesting. We're always looking for a way to sort of take it to the next level each year, and that's how that came about. We just kicked around those ideas, and they were into it, and we were too.
Yeah, it's always good where you can get a government entity involved in a private report, and maybe some exchanging of data and things of that nature. Is that the way it went with the Secret Service? Did they actually provide some data for the report?
It did. So we began to discuss with them, and they have a case tracking system, just like I'm sure everybody that does any kind of incident response. But they use that internally. Of course, to allow data sharing, we needed a same-to-same sort of data collection method. And so the Secret Service ended up just implementing our Veris framework that is discussed in the report, which is just, what metrics do you collect surrounding an incident? And that's what they did. They implemented that, and they had an internal application, and they took it from their own investigators, and they put in this information. They scrubbed it of any kind of details that identified clients, and we put everything together and analyzed the data in that respect.
That's terrific. And now you're working with the Secret Service at headquarters, or in New York, or where?
We worked with them down in the headquarters in D.C.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Do you have any? I know that today was supposed to be just a brief overview of the report. Anything else you'd like to add as we come to the close of this segment?
Well, I'll just say that again, I'm really glad that folks are reading it. If there are, we're going to be doing this series, so if there are any certain things that are of interest that you'd like me to focus on, I'd be glad to sort of tailor the discussion around that. We'll talk about some of the statistics and findings and things of that nature. But certainly, if there's something of particular interest to the folks out there, then I always like to customize the discussion as much as possible.
Yeah, thank you very much, Wade. I certainly appreciate that.